You're watching Moontower Soccer's Story of the Week, where Landon Cottam and Jeremiah Bentley discuss this week's most important, consequential, and interesting Austin FC news. All right, let's get into the biggest stories of the week. Austin FC grabs a come-from-behind win against FC Dallas. That is Austin's first victory of the year. I think their first victory since, do you remember when the last one was?
Oh man, I meant to look this up, but no, it's hundreds of
I
days.
think only their second since like last July.
That sounds right.
And so big deal to win, period, but even bigger to do it against in-state rivalry, to have it count towards Copa Tejas, the most important trophy in the world. I guess let's jump into some of the biggest storylines. What do you have first?
Yeah, for me, I mean, the thing, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, and it was just my perception, but it felt like almost from the start, like it was like guys playing soccer and a team that was like playing to win and playing to advance the ball. And I feel like the passing chart showed that, sort of where the connections were. And I noticed in the first half, because they were playing back toward the south end, so it's easier for me to kind of see what's going on. Like it seemed like there were guys sort of trying things and being aggressive, and the spacing wasn't great. And sometimes they got in each other's way because of that, because it's not a group of guys that have played together a ton. But it was heartening to see them just kind of going for it a little bit.
Yeah, I do want to push back against something you have in the notes here, which says more guys playing soccer than a system. And that's the part, like the comparison there is where I want to maybe push back a little, is
okay,
because I think this was very much within a system. And I think there were some changes to this game, both with the kind of the game plan and how players executed. But this is what Josh Wolf wants it to look like every week. And for whatever reason, I'm not saying it's just on the players, but whenever I've said like moments in other games where there were things there are things happening, like space being created by movement of players, and nobody was capitalizing on that. The execution wasn't there to take advantage of it. In this game, it was. And I think there were some shifts, and there was a confidence, assertiveness in the attack, where it was like, okay, get into a space, open up space with movement, with the positional play. But then at a certain point, yes, play soccer, just do it, just go do something. And that's where I think that was really showing. And that was the main difference, was the just playing soccer part of it, because we haven't seen that in any other game.
No, I mean, we didn't see a lot of that horseshoe sadness, like back pass all the way back to Stuver. Like people, I guess that's what it was. Like people were being aggressive and they were moving and trying things and advancing the ball. And so maybe I felt like this is a decent transition into Danny Pereira and where he played in this match, and sort of the skill set that he brings when he plays where he did today, as opposed to where he's maybe played earlier in the year. And as I was watching him, I was thinking, man, I bet Landon is going to have a lot of thoughts on this. So I'll just let you go on that.
Yeah, I mean, like the reasons why we don't always like Danny Pereira as a lone six still exist. And I don't think FC Dallas did much to expose those reasons in this game. But the reason why he played as a lone six for so long has also not changed. And it's because he's so good at progressing the ball by himself a lot of times. And there's not many people in this league who can do that specific thing as good as him. And so maybe like Josh Wolf kind of hinted at this in I think it was in his post-game press conference, that like certain games, like that's going to be the call. Maybe that's not the call every time. If it's a team that is going to have a bit more of the ball against us, or is a bit more dangerous in certain phases of play or certain parts of the field, maybe you don't want Danny back there on his own. But in a game like this, where Dallas came in and was going to give us the ball a little bit more, Danny Pereira just brought it up on his own more times than not, and allowed Alex Ring to be a bit further forward and look a little bit like the Alex Ring of 2022 as well.
Yeah, and I think one of the other surprises in the starting, or maybe not the surprise in the starting lineup, but the surprises in where he was Owen Wolf, winger, which I know is something he did back in 21 some and less.
2022, I believe.
Oh, in 22 also. Yeah, that's true. And a little bit less of lately. And remember before not loving seeing him there. And I mean, he wasn't a world beater, but he looked very competent on the wing and better than anybody else we've had play. But looking at the options, I mean, him, Finley, or Emiliano Rigoni, like, yeah, he seems like a credible winger at this point for this club.
Yeah, I thought it was in real time. I thought it was a solid game from Owen. And upon rewatch, I feel even more strongly about that he played a pretty good game. And I don't necessarily like him in just any role playing on the wing. And I think even in this game plan, this tactical setup, I think in different games, he probably looks worse if we're playing a better team. But given what he did in this game, the runs in behind and the build up, he would be looping in and making runs in behind. And we talk about his athleticism. Like, he's probably as effective at getting in behind a defense as any of our other wingers are, if not more effective than most of them. And so he was doing that, stretching that back line. And then in the attacking third, he would pull wide. They were setting up those triangles on that sideline with Gallagher and Driussi, or Rubio would come over sometimes, or sometimes Alex Ring would pull over and kind of overload aside. And in that just little combination play, just kind of these triangles rotating around each other and moving and creating space for each other, he was really good in those moments. And then in these moments where this movement creates something, this has been one of my bigger criticisms of Owen Wolff, is him being a bit too timid, a bit too conservative when looking to play forward. And he was not that in this game. There's a ball he plays behind to Alex Ring that gets him into the box alone. And I think he ends up fizzing across the 6-yard box that just misses Rubio and Obrion. And then he had Driussi for a cutback on the penalty spot that he didn't see. But Owen Wolff played that ball in, and it was a nice ball, a bold ball to play that was like, I think in a different game or a different mindset, he turns and plays the safe pass back and perpetuates the horseshoe of sadness. But in this game, he didn't do that and was making some really nice plays in those moments.
Yeah, and I think we can't really talk about the highlights of this game without talking about Sebastian Driussi. I wrote the note is good. Driussi is back. This is his second match? Third? No.
He was a sub in one, started the next one, and played 90 today.
This is his first full match. Looked a little bit reminiscent of the Driussi of 2022. So was there something you've talked of like twice about how Dallas's performance on Saturday was set up like exactly for Austin to thrive from a combination of both tactics and the players they had available. But like from what you saw from Driussi, is it you see that as more a function of health, more a function of just Dallas not being very good, or more a function of him sort of playing in a spot where he can fit in with the other players around him more?
Can I say all of the above?
I knew that was going to be the answer. Okay, so Kevin, yes, a little bit of A, a little bit of B, a little bit of C, but which one is slightly more influential?
I honestly think the positioning and kind of movement of Austin FC players in an intelligent way, and then playing aggressively and proactively in those moments, really lent itself to Driussi looking good in moments. And so it's less about when I've criticized Driussi for trying to do too much sometimes. And it's often when the game is kind of slowed down a little too much and he drops back and is trying to make something happen, often failing to do that and taking himself out of the opportunity to be on the end of a ball once it does get into a dangerous area. In this game, because of how aggressive everyone else was playing and the positioning that they were doing, I was saying that he was playing as less of that like second striker that we've seen him do in some of these games. And him and Alex Ring were floating around all over the place. And I think Diego Rubio is key in this as well, where you see Driussi is off to the left and Alex Ring maybe will come over and overload that side as the ball plays to that side. As they switch it back to the other side, Rubio would drop into that half space where you would expect a 10 to be, and Driussi would run into the space where Rubio was and kind of essentially become the 9. And I think, like I was hoping, like we kind of all hoped would happen, is that Rubio helps unlock Driussi a little bit, where Rubio is he's good as a 9, but he can drop in and play that 10 position as well. And so as you have these guys kind of rotating around each other, you don't have to have Driussi running from one end of the field to the next. You can have that rotation, pull a defense out of position, and Driussi can play on that front line because he's good there too. And so when you have both of those guys being able to do it, I think both are going to benefit from it.
Yeah, we talked about them kind of playing like as a fluid front five, and we saw a lot of that. One thing I was thinking about is like these guys. I think I mentioned it earlier. Like these guys have not played a lot of minutes together, right? So like, how much of that is? Do you expect going forward they will do this more and get better at it, or is that just like a moment in time because of the way they were playing, or is this sort of part of the long term plan is to have more of a fluid attacking group with this group of dudes?
Yeah, I mean, FC Dallas is not in a good place right now. They're not playing well or confidently, or they weren't putting a ton of pressure high up. But I think one of my like the thing that encourages me the most is like being able to break down that deep defensive block. That's the thing that's hard for anyone. But
you playing an ad again?
The ad music started playing in my ear and I couldn't focus. Breaking down a deep block is hard for anybody. And Austin has been especially bad at that lately. But in this game, you can say like, okay, it was easier for Austin to progress the ball into the final third, which is absolutely true because Dallas was not putting a ton of pressure higher up. But once they got there, they were playing with this urgency, with this speed. I think you can say that like, okay, yeah, Dallas wasn't very good. They're in a bad shape, right? In a bad way right now. So maybe not the best opponent, but my hope is that even though this wasn't the best opposition, that they can take some confidence, learn from what that looked like and what it felt like, and implement it against a better team. And maybe it doesn't end up 2-1. Maybe it ends up 1-1 or 2-1 the other way. But I mean, we would take that right now, right? Like a loss where we looked like a team that could have won. I mean, that's an improvement of what we've seen for any game before this one, right?
Absolutely. Well, this is a league of vibes too. So Austin's got a not very good opponent coming in this week, and maybe there's a chance to put together a little bit of streak to create something better. So this was the first game in Copa Tejas. I believe the Copa. Oh, so the Copa was, I believe, on the Red Line train tour up from the downtown station.
Yeah.
And people were drinking beer out of it. I was talking with Bill McCamley from one of the guys that organizes it today, and he said it got by the time they hit the fifth brewery, things are pretty loose with that group going up. So it was there. It was in the stands. Saw lots of pictures with it. Austin now off to a great position, picking up the clear win. And also we got a King of the Hill / Copa Tejas reference with the tifo. Like I loved it. Were you familiar with the reference or not? Like I showed it to my wife.
Oh yeah.
I don't get this. And I was like, this is brilliant. What are you talking about?
Yeah, I think this is one of those like deepish cuts where I'm guessing the majority of the stadium did not know what it was. But the people who did know what it was thought it was the best thing they've seen all month, probably.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you don't, we could probably link this in the show notes, but like the Alistair McAllister commentary on the goal that includes the tifo, like, and also the original King of the Hill clip that it refers to is genius. So I would encourage everybody to check that out if you don't remember it. One of the other Copa things is that the clubs have agreed to have allow instruments in the stands from among the three. And so the FC Dallas band was very drummy and very, I don't know, sound like they were just like randomly beating their drums the whole time. But I feel like you were a lot closer to that than those of us in the South End. Like, how do you feel about that?
I hate when there's bands in the stands because I am slightly closer to that section than I am to the South End supporter section. And then I'm also under that roof, which is, as we've heard many times when talking about the design of Q2 Stadium, the roof is designed to keep sound in and reflect it back down. And so those drums, it's usually Houston, right? And then sometimes Dallas has been allowed to bring drums in. Those are pretty much the only ones that make enough sound for it to matter. But it is just like this cacophony of one band playing in my right ear and another band playing in my left ear. And so I always make sure and bring earplugs to the Copa Tejas games where I'm going to have both of those going on. But I was curious because they're significantly smaller, and like on the broadcast, you mostly just hear the Austin band. Can you hear whenever like Dallas and Houston are there? Can you hear them in that opposite corner over there?
No, not from the corner, not from the south end. You can't hear them at all. I mean, except that like times like when Austin was changing songs or whatever. That's the only time you can hear them. But they're not a factor if you're down by the Austin band.
Must be nice.
It is. Okay.
If you like this video, you can listen to the full episode at moontowersoccer.com or wherever you get your podcasts.